Okay, so welcome to day 2 of our 5-day plank challenge. Um, we're going to experiment with kind of 2 ideas here. The first one is we're going to do a set of strength building exercises that contribute to your plank. And then we're going to head back into plank proper and do a few of the isometric engagement. So if you had already taken the class yesterday, we did a whole bunch of variations on alignment. We're going to revisit some of those ideas and then add isometric engagement to it. Once we get there, I'll kind of explain a little bit more. If you don't know that vocab word, you will by the end of this 30-minute class. So I'd like us to start off by sitting. Easy sitting position, doesn't have to be complex at all. And I'd like you to reach your arms forward so that they come straight out ahead of you, and then bend your elbows and see here if you can bring those elbows to touch. If not, don't worry, have them separated by any amount. But the next point I'd like you to connect here would be the heel of the hands, right? So right where the wrist joints are. So you'll see me do this with elbows close, but if that's impossible for your chest or shoulders, leave them open. And the next point, we'll keep here, the heel of the hands. I'm gonna have my hands in front of my face, so I'll be a little bit hidden. So what we're going to work with here is a resisted active range of motion, the resistance being just the range of motion as it exists. So it won't be weighted, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to work to peel the hands apart to see if we can get those fingers to point out towards the sides. Right? So I'm starting with my fingers pointing up, and then as I open my hands apart, I'm trying to get my fingers to point out left and right. Again, your elbows could be really spacious. And I'm going to work to hold this up a little bit so that if I'm down here, I can also include a little bit of a shoulder stretch. But if you're finding that's just a little bit hard to come up with, then do this lower. And I'm just going to roll through a few of these, kind of going in a couple of different patterns and paces. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker at this moment. I've showed you what the action is, so we'll kind of go through it now. Right, and then I'm just going to do one wrist at a time. And so what I'm working with here is an active range of motion for wrist extension. I'm going to do the other hand a few times now. And as I work with this, I'm trying to power up all the small muscles on the forearm that are going to help me come into wrist extension once I'm on my hands, and then back to 2 at once. Again, this could be higher or lower, elbows wide or narrow. Important point here will be to, can you get the heels of the hands together? And on this last set, let's get there and hold there for a moment. I'm going to show you a couple of things I've seen people do while this happens. Sometimes people end up tipping their palms forward. Does that happen in your wrist? See if you can center your palms to come up. And there are some folks that their kind of palms face back in towards their face. And then I would include here that instruction to see if the palms can go straight on up. And then we'll close. Let's do 2 more, a longer hold there. Now, I've got the advantage of looking at myself on screen. And I want to see here if one goes further than the other, and then see if I can create a matching pair. Ooh, not so bad, pretty symmetrical. I'm working it though on that left wrist. And then let's go ahead and come together. And then last time, let's hold here. And then I want you to see if you can flare your fingers while those hands are moving apart, or do your fingers curl in or bunch together. So straight fingers, wide fingers. Oh, that goes all the way up to my left shoulder. All right, let's go ahead and come on down. So that position we're in when we're in plank pose on the wrist is called wrist extension. And that is a troublesome spot for a lot of people. So let there be an education for your wrists when we do this sort of stuff. It's not really, I don't think of it as warming up as like just getting blood flowing and stretching. Like this would be a wrist extension stretch. This is actually a strengthening exercise, meaning do all these muscles on the back of the forearm have the strength to overcome the stiffness in the wrist. So that's why I love starting off with that one. It's a really important one to me. Right, so the next one I want us to come, still sitting, is I want you to find an object. I'll show you where it's headed so you can make a wise decision or two. I've got, my store of bolsters. And what we're going to do is start with the arms out straight like we would for a plank, and then bend into those elbows. So the elbows are alongside the waist. So we're going to mimic a few times here, high to low plank. I'm going to do this with the bolster on the backs of my hands, wrists, and forearms. Now the bolster is, I'm not sure how many pounds, probably not any more than 8 or so. But if you want something lighter or you don't have a bolster around, what about just, opening a blanket so it's long enough to span your forearms, and then you'll have a little placeholder and weight there. And then my last suggestion for this, if you're feeling it and you've got them around, would be to have a pair of weights. This is 5 pounds. That would probably be just on the heavy side for me for that range of motion. So I'll go with the bolster because here it is. So you're going to start with your arms out straight and see if you can get your wrists to the level of your shoulders, meaning you're not higher, nor do you need to start lower. But again, arms are straight out ahead. And then from this, bend into your elbows, whatever prop you're using, you'll just have to negotiate with it as it comes closer. But see if you can get your elbow along your side. And then we're going to raise straight back up. We're going to do a few. Here's number 2. And feel free to edit as we go along, right? So if you started with something and like 2 minutes later, you're like, this is a bad idea. You don't have to commit to it. You can go lighter or heavier. And then the next time you do this sequence, you might just change a prop because now you know how we're using it. Right, as you go through the next few, notice if your shoulders are coming forward and see if you can keep those shoulders held to the middle of the back, especially in the action of having the arms come forward. All right, I wasn't counting. I counted the first 2. We might be on number 20 by now. Let's go ahead and pause. We are going to do a second set. So this would be a moment if it's useful to you to switch props. I don't have my 3-pounders around, so I'm going to stick with the bolster. If I had lighter weights, I would go for that. And as you take a breath or so, let's slip those arms back in. Okay, so again, we're mimicking high to low plank. This object, the bolster, is obviously much lighter than a whole human body, but the way that we have it held out in space is going to catch the same front of the deltoid, inner pec chest. So as you have your arms out ahead of you, that weight is to kind of mimic what you do when you come on the floor. Here's set number 2. I'll count these, I promise. So arms come out straight and then elbows bend, there's 1. And then forward again, straight to the elbows, and 2. Just be creative. If you don't have exact props like I have, here's number 3. Notice if you are moving your shoulder blades forward and back and up and down, and can you keep the shoulder blades still to your back from start to finish? Oh my gosh, I might have lost count. I think this is 4. My heroes are the fitness people. Here's 5 who can do all this instructing and count. It's a certain kind of genius, 6, that I have never excelled at. Oh, here's 7. And we'll go up to 10, 8, 9, elbows bend. And here's the last one. We're going to hold this one. And it's not, last yogi standing. It's a matter of, can you find some decent alignment in your shoulders? Meaning, are they pulling overly forward? Are they coming up? Can you secure those shoulders to your middle back just for the last breath or so? All right, let's go ahead and take that down. All right, so we did active wrist extension. We did active load bearing with the arms ahead of us and pulled them in. This next one is another pulling action because a lot of the strength required to do planking isn't really in the legs. Most of us have sufficiently strong legs. It's like top core to shoulders. So this is one where I think a length of this elastic tubing is useful, but if you don't have it, a regular yoga strap, and if it's really like, I don't even have that, just grab like a sweatshirt or something. What we're going to do is sit with the legs out straight, and I'll show with the strap at first. And I'm going to walk my hands as forward along the strap. This is what we'll do with the non-stretchy stuff. And then as I'm ready, I'm going to keep like a really strong grip. Do you see the way like my forearms are activated and my hands are like knotted into these little fists? And I'm going to slowly pull back on this. A little grip strength in there for you, so that you again come to an elbow bend. And then to start it off again, I'll walk the hands forward, make those strong gripping hands, and slowly pull back. If you have elastic to work with, this is how I do, because mine's like this rolly little bit of like tubing. I don't want it to snap me in the face. I put it around both of my feet. I hold the tails together, and then I pull it through that area across my feet. I'll do it one more time in case anybody needed to see it twice. I'm gonna go like this a little bit. So I've got the two ends. I'm going to drop it around and over and then pull through. That way I've got a little stirrup on each foot, less inclined to smack me in the face. True story, these things happen. So if you have the elastic, you'll start with your arms reaching forward, but load it up with tension. Don't make it too slack. And then you're also gonna pull back. All right, we're gonna keep this going for a few moments. And again, if you're just working with like a sweatshirt or something, just pull on something. I'm turning to have my back to you for the moment because I want to show you shoulder blades. So we don't want the shoulder blades to come forward and then pinch to pull on this. We really want to use the shoulder proper. So not the scaps, but the actual like upper arm strength. So as you pull back, try to push your shoulder blades out wide. And then as you let those arms go forward, think about the shoulder blades staying totally still. And if your eyes are on the screen, I'll kind of show you the don't do it this way version a few times. So pinching my shoulder blades to bend my elbows, and then hunching my shoulder blades to release. Again, I'll ham it up for a moment. So squeezing the scaps, and then oof, shoulder blades totally hunched. So instead, shoulder blades stay in one place. And as you go with this, this becomes a shoulder exercise. Let's do a pause for a moment, reset, and we'll hop in and I'll count them, we'll do 10. So from this, elbows to a bend, and it just depends on what you've got. You could have your elbows go behind your torso, but the idea is here that you're not having to move your shoulder blades as much as you are moving your arms. And this would be another sort of mimicry of our high to low plank, which for a lot of people, we'll get to this, maybe we'll do it tomorrow. We really use the shoulder blades to express movements that we're trying to express with the elbows. All right, last couple. Can you hold the last one? Pull back any deeper. And again, make sure it hasn't meant the shoulder blades had to move. All right, and then we'll release this one. So if you're local and you don't have one of these and you want one, don't order it. I'll just give you one. Tell me when you can stop by the studio and I'll happily divest them to you. All right, so our last preparatory exercise, kind of taking components of plank, reverse engineering them and putting them on to other exercises. Here, I'm going to use a pair of blocks. I'm going to have them on their middle heights. That works for me. This is adaptable. And I'm going to place the backs of my calves onto them. You could also do this with your heels. So if you see where this is going and you say, oh, I use that for my feet, have at it. I don't like it for my heels. So I go up where I'm a little less bony. So the back of my calves is where I do. And then we're going to do some straight leg bridge lifts. So your knees are not going to bend, but you are going to press down and see if you can get your hips off of the floor. Let's do a million of these. So you're going to come back down. So if you had your eyes on the screen, you would have seen here that it's really just a couple of inches between my backside and the ground. It's not really a bridge like a back bend. It's more like a bridge, just like a pelvic lift. And as we go through these, I'm gesticulating wildly with my hands, as I often am. But I would like you to take your arms off of the floor. So cross your arms over your chest. You could go to prayer hands. You could just reach up for the ceiling, hold opposite shoulders. But one way or another, instead of having the elbows pressed back or even the shoulders pressed back, you're going to lift up and down off of essentially your low back, low belly, and hip strength. All right, let's continue along. Again, edit props once you see where this is headed. Is there something that you could use that would work just as well or even better? And I'm going to throw a couple variables at you just so that you can make good use of this. The next time you're up, you're going to stay. So the first variable is duration, like how long do we stay there? forever. And while you're here, are your legs totally straight? Like, could you really actively press your thighs to the floor, but at the same time, try to push your butt to the ceiling? So there's one variable change, the length of time we're here. All right, let's go ahead and come on down. Second variable change, cross your left leg on top of your right one. It's going to be a little crooked, and come up really just through scissoring those two legs on one block. So it adds a little asymmetry to the work. Again, I'm keeping my arms in front of my chest so that I know that I'm not pushing down with my shoulders or elbows. All right, and then go ahead and cross the other way. So left leg over right one, two legs straight, press down, and get that uplift. So here, trying to find the hip and core strength required to hold the body off the floor. Same thing in plank. All right, go ahead and legs back to their respective positions. And then coming back up, and while you're here, can you raise your left leg towards the ceiling? So straight legs, right calf presses down, lift your butt, and then left leg returns to the block, take a pause. Oof, that's a good one. One of my favorites. All right, and then both legs press down. Left leg stays really pressing down. Well, this is my much harder side. Right leg comes up towards the ceiling, two straight legs, and trying to keep your cheeks off the floor. Oh, that's a hard side for me. All right, and then right leg back down, and then hips back down. All right, give it a pause, give it a breath. And then one more time, we're gonna come up and then slowly down. Do a last set here of just coming up and down, straight up and down. Slow rhythm. And every time you come up, see if it's the ceiling of the pose. Legs are pressing down, sacrum is pressing up towards the ceiling. Let's do a few more. Again, it's not a plank, but isn't it kind of a plank? It's an on your back plank. Okay, last one. If you don't feel your glutes after this one, we need to have a long talk. Let's go ahead and put the hips on the ground, bend the knees, and we're going to come over to our sides. All right, so for the last segment of this, we're going to take all that strength building, put it into a plank pose, and we're going to explore isometric engagement. If you're with me often as a student, you've heard that term quite a bit. I bet you know what it is. But essentially, it's loading up for a movement without actually creating the movement. And plank creates a really awesome platform for that exploration. Let's come on to our all fours. Press your hands down, spread fingers, toes turn under. Firstly, walk the knees back. And we'll do one straight up plank. Again, the imaginary master list of alignment, here it is. Toes turn under, legs go straight. Push into the feet. So it's like your toes are trying to flick back. Pump the hands down. You're already doing isometric engagement because your hands can't go any further. They're already on the floor. That's an isometric push. From here, can you raise from the back and the base of the skull? Tilt the sternum forward as though your heart wants to see the space ahead of you. Roll your inner elbows to face forward. Tailbone just tucks under, just like a little insurance policy, not so much that you're dropping your hips, just a little turn under. Lowest front ribs lift, shoulder blades apart, shoulder blades down the back. Knees are straight. All right, let's go ahead and come on down. So from here, let's return to something we did yesterday. Walk the hands forward. How far forward? I'll leave that on you. And then from here, back to plank. All right, as you're in this forward arm plank pose, the isometric engagement, meaning you're gonna like rev the engine, but you're not gonna go anywhere. You're gonna pull back on your hands. Ugh. So it's like you're about to wrinkle up your mat towards your toes. And if you were watching me on screen, you'd be like, is she doing that? Well, let me answer resoundingly, heck yes, but there's not much to see because it's isometric. All right, and then let's bring the knees on down, hands back underneath the shoulders. What about this one from yesterday? Set your hands out wide. This could also be done on elbows. I'm gonna start with my knees back just to kind of catch the framework of that plank. And then from here, legs come up straight. So a wide armed plank. But on this one, instead of just holding it as a pose, as a shape and a geometry, we're going to add action to it. So as you have your hands wide, squeeze your arms in, like you're about to wrinkle up the mat in between the two thumbs. So hands are set out wider than the mat, but upper arm bones in particular, squeezing in towards each other. Hello, pec chest. Whoo. All right, knees come on down. Let's come back with hands underneath the shoulders. And then here's round 3 on arm position. This time you're gonna have your hands right next to each other or your elbows. And if that just feels really insecure, they don't have to overlap or actually touch, just have them closer than usual. And then from here, push the hands down, knees go back, knees go straight. Here's your hands together version. Can you push your hands apart like you wanted to stretch the mat widthwise across your space to the sides of the room? I so feel that in my rhomboids between my shoulder blades. I hope you guys do too. Hope I'm not the only one. Ooh, pushing apart, like the hands are about to stretch out widthwise, but they go nowhere. Isometric loading. All right, and then let's come on down. Take a pause, take a breath. All right, back to typical arms. Unless you love one of those, go back to it. Knees walk back. I want to hear after class if anyone else was sore, because I was. All right, so knees are back, toes are turned under, legs are straight. Let's go with wide legs. So set your feet out across your mat, wider than your mat. And then from here, squeeze your thighs in actively as though you're about to hop your feet right next to each other. Isometric engagement. So it's not just the position, it's loading that position with more and further action. Squeeze the thighs, squeeze the thighs. All right, knees come down. Take a breath. And then of course we'll go with narrow legs. So I'm gonna start by having my knees together, toes together. And then from here, as I stretch my legs to straighten, they're right where I want them. So one tree trunk of a leg. Press the hands, and then imagine here, you're about to hop your feet apart. So pull outwards on the legs. Where do you feel that? I get that in the low core, something on the low back. Oh, you'd think I'd feel it more on the outer hips, but I don't. Maybe you guys do. Oh, like the feet are about to hop apart, but they don't. All right, and then knees come on down. Let's take a pause. And one of these from yesterday that I just think is such a sweet and kind of like overlooked action. You make little bird beaks out of your hands. You turn the birds inwards to turn your arms backwards, right? So it's not outwards, you're turning in. And then from here, with a little bend in the fists, how wide to the side can you take your arms? I'll trace with one finger. This is where I feel it. Upper arm, over elbow, forearm, pinky edge of hand. You can feel it somewhere else. I'm just trying to illuminate a little bit what we're doing. All right. Okay, let's come on out of that one. Let's hop back in. So after yesterday's class, I got a good question about what do your toes do in the posture? Well, you know, alignment is sort of something that can be adapted. It's not a static idea. So I like to take that question and turn it into sort of an isometric answer. So you're going to come back to your plank. And what I want you to find here, and again, you can just go to kind of your basic setup, typical setup, is find a few movements where you try to pull your heel bones down towards the floor. Don't lift your hips like you're heading into dog pose for that. Try to keep yourself low, planky, but imagine your heel bones are going to step behind you. So I'm imagining I could step onto that baseboard that's behind me. And then push from your toes and come forward. Now your wrists may not be able to help you with this. This could be done from the elbows. You're going to pull forward and back once or twice because I want you to know what I mean when I say push off the toes like you're going to go forward. You'll actually do that one more time. Push off the toes and come forward. All right, take a pause, or at least I need to take a pause. So the isometric work on this next one is back to that plank. The idea is you're about to launch forward because your toes are pressing back, but you're going to stop yourself. Like you did this right up against a wall of a brick building and you could go nowhere, right? So your toes are pushing back. I hope it straightens your leg. I bet it will. But I want it to travel up and live and spin and turn around in your low core. So as you have this pushing forward, you don't move forward. Your core says, let's not. Oh, love that one. Got to come on down. All right, we'll take a breath or two. And we're going to come into a couple of side planks. Again, elbows welcome, knees down welcome. When we come into a side plank, you'll probably see me start most times with my feet stacked, but if I begin to fatigue, I do this little crisscross leg. You're welcome to do that one as well, because it's helpful. All right, so we're gonna take a breath, spread fingers, start your plank off by walking your knees back. So you're already there in a modification. Pump the hands down, and then let's go straight legs. Okay, 2 feet right next to each other, and then turn onto the outer edge of the right foot, but don't take your left hand off the floor. Left hand stays down. However, push that left hand down and see if you can twist your navel more towards the left. All right, back to center. I'm gonna stretch to a downward dog for a second. Real world the teaching here. Can't do endless planks. They're finite, but let's go ahead and do another one. So you're gonna come back to your plank, roll into the outer edge of that left foot. So stack or cross the feet here, or beyond that left knee. And as you're here, press down through that right hand. So pump the floor with that, but try to turn your navel more towards the right. So I'm thinking about my belly button facing that green wall that's behind me. Push, 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 push that right hand. All right, back to center, tap the knees down, take a pause. We got one more of those. Okay, so this is a great isometric one for any muscle that contributes to rotation in your spine. So this is like deep core musculature. So here's the deal. All fours, knees move back, press the hands down, chest comes forward, ribs lift up, and then into your plank pose. Once more, feet next door to each other, and then turn over onto the outer edge of your right foot. From here, we've all done this pose before. We're not doing that one. So keep your left hand on the floor, weight shift. So you're heavier on your left hand, the one you want to pick up, the one you will not pick up, and think about lifting the right hand. Do you hear it in my voice? I'm not lifting anything up, but I'm pressing that left hand down and imagining through the power of rotation, whoo, I could lift that right hand from the floor. All right, back to the toes, pause on the knees, side two. So again, we're loading up, like this big movement's about to happen. It never shows up, but man, we got ready for that party. Right. And again, it's like you're revving your engine. Last one. All right, hands and knees, feet move back. And again, structurally, geometrically, if you're watching me do it, you'd be like, she just isn't doing the full pose, but I'm engaging like the Dickens. And you guys know you are too. All right, plank, feet together, roll into the outer edge of the left foot. Now get heavier by shifting over towards the right over the right hand. Normally you'd lift that for side plank, but you're not right now. And as you pump down that right hand, oh, can you imagine lifting the left hand off the floor? Again, it's not even gonna budge. Nothing's gonna happen. You're not gonna see it, but I'm gonna feel it for days and days. All right, so heavier on that right hand. Think about sucking that left hand off the floor. Oh, all right, and then back to toes, back to knees, sit on back, and you can bring that back. So the hands together, the corners of the thumbs can touch. This can happen right underneath your chin. You can draw it down a little deeper. You could set the hands left or right of center. That's one. We did our little internally rotated bird beaks, and we take them up, and you can even move your wrists in that position. Another accessible one is a loose weaving of the fingers. And then I kind of just begin to swirl here. So it's a little rotational range of motion. You can see the forearms kind of act like pistons when that happens. Right, so those are a few different wrist relieving exercises if you need a little change of scenery in those joints, but don't forget about the first one. You might feel like, well, I've been on my hands for 30 minutes, I'm done, but go back to this one because it's not, there's no pressure, there's no load bearing here. It's all load bearing there. And then this one is just saying to your forearm strength, can we move the forearm that far back? All right, so day 2, hope it feels good.